Hello and namaste. You see, this is me. And actually, at this point of time, I'm in India, though normally I live in Brazil. So I hope you don't mind some Indian background sounds. This tarot spread I'm putting here is called Timeline. It is easy to understand and straightforward. For me, reading tarot card spreads means to dare a glimpse into periods of my own inner and outer development from a different point of view, as well as feeling the possible future tendencies and interpreting them, for me of course, relevant to the situation I am at this present time, at this moment, which may influence also what I may be experiencing later in the near future. First, let me give you the definition of a word I use frequently. It is quite important. I work with it in my overall approach to life, to my own development, and to the universe. The word is most important also for what I'm offering professionally to others. That is, if they are interested. The word also is central in the training course I'm offering. The course is called Psychic Yoga of the Heart. I'm talking about the word psychic. I'm using it here for me and my activities according to the way my teacher is applying it. By the way, he is Indian, though does not belong to any nation according to him. I got connected to him even before my life in India. In my view, he and his teaching are as essential for me, for my own future, as much as also I believe for the future of the development of the consciousness of humanity, while it is moving through the transitional period towards a new world. We are using the term psychic for something that is closely related to the development of our soul being inside the physical, material universe and on this planet. Whereas usually the meaning of the word is related to anything psychological, as you may be knowing. You can see that there is a profound difference in the application of this word. By the way, I love to tell stories. And of course, I like most my own stories, the true stories of my life. At times I tell them to myself and I write them down, what was and it is happening to me. Events which I have created, which make up my reality. You can call them soap operas of my own, part of the big soap opera called life. The difference between TV soap operas stories and live soap opera stories is that the stories in TV are at best entertaining, if at all, whereas in life our stories educate us, form us, and push us ahead on our path, the end of which nobody seems to know, right into the unknown. Thus, one of our interesting tasks in life is to learn to accept and to appreciate our own stories and to enjoy them inside this universe. I myself use affirmations in order to understand my stories better, like I open myself to receive and accept the ways and means designed by the universe for the manifestation of my union with the higher consciousness in the material world, in total faith, surrender and confidence. Putting tarot cards to myself helps me to integrate and to enjoy my creation better and deeper. You see, each story of each one of us is unique and fascinating in its own way. So is mine, at least for me. It is understood that the main general stories, of course, are composed of many small stories which make up the experiences in our life. They form an overall life experience, at the end of which the soap opera will finish for good. I was born at the end of the Second World War, and funny enough, in East Germany. My physical roots are a rather mixed up European affair. If I can believe records, my body cells contain a mixture between German, Polish, Serbian, Dutch, Austrian, and God knows whatever other barbarian chromosomes. My first name is supposed to be Russian or Ukrainian. Professionally, my mother was a medical doctor, my father an agricultural engineer, surviving ex-officer of the German Nazi army, later university lecturer and professor and leader of 2 major communist government research institutes. He even was Nationalpreisträger of the Communist German Democratic Republic, the highest reward a scientist could get at that time under the regime. Alas, unfortunately, he could be enjoying the honor only for a few years before, with the construction of the Berlin Wall, he became a declared enemy of the same state that had sponsored him. From one day to another being declared a capitalist traitor and collaborator. But he was also a survivor. He survived 1 year of daily interrogation by the secret police, and later my parents even made it to the West through the Iron Curtain, and this after I left the house of my parents before for good and jumped the Berlin Wall 16 years old. The background of my birth and upbringing was and is for me quite a challenging combination. No wonder that at that time, soon after I was born, things went wrong with me, so to speak. At least according to the opinion of my parents, relatives and friends, and school teachers. Consequently, one of the later entries in the files of the East German Staatssicherheit on me read, "Dangerous troublemaker." And I was set to remain this even much later, in other areas and other countries. At that time, in my youth, I was more interested in other areas of life than in disgusting politics, in activities that were banned inside the political system and state that I had chosen to deal with. For instance, how we really psychologically tick, or how to deal with these invisible layers of existence, where uncanny things and events are happening in those unknown caves of consciousness in hidden universes, which are penetrating and influencing us and our bodies and our existence. And on top of all of this, of course, there was also a girl I had fallen in love with for many years while she not even was looking at me. However, I am well aware that I start my stories here in this channel at a point of time within a period of past history. Sorry for this, but for me the past somehow in some ways still seems to be relevant now in the present, as if past, present and future are melting on some weird level of mind. From the little my parents told me of the Second World War, I could deduce that my father was fighting for Hitler, both in France and later in Russia, in order to conquer it, like some people still seem to want to do it now, after 90 years. Indeed, there are vast lands and resources still waiting. However, after the attempt of the Germans to grab lands from the eastern subhumans failed, like other similar attempts before, my father, amongst thousands of other Ostland Ritters, was deserting and fleeing the approaching Soviet army on its forward push to crash Germany. He not only managed to survive and to escape, but he even was meeting my mother in the middle of the war, in the middle of nowhere, avoiding successfully the approaching death trenches, bombs and tanks, the execution commandos, the air raids and the concentration camps. Finally, my parents were put miraculously together in Czechia, running away from the Red Army on bicycles, crossing several countries with me inside the womb of my mother. In the end, they did get stuck in East Germany after all, and this because the Americans swept some lands with the Russians. This was where I was born. Was this destiny? Well, being inside my mother for weeks on a bicycle in the middle of chaos, being saved even from the bombardment of Dresden by the British and Americans, the answer to this question is hard to find. It could have been as well destiny as karma. Or was it an accident? But surely you can call me a lucky war child. No wonder that one of the strongest beliefs my father was implanting into me years after the war, when I was about 11 years old, was a belief which formed to a large extent the later stories of my life in quite decisive ways, and this in different parts of the world. This belief, contained in that fatherly advice, given to me by him, was a classical belief example, and I was accepting it as an absolute truth from then on. My father simply, straightforwardly indoctrinated me, as we say now, fully convinced of the truth of this belief because he believed in it himself and consequently experienced it in his life. And I took it on myself as well. I accepted it as truth. In his indoctrination talk, he told me, after observing me for some time, as he said, that in his eyes I was a kind of easygoing guy. So his parental advice consisted of two remarkable major parts. Now you listen to me, easygoing guy will not do. After a lifetime of experiences, I, as your father, have to tell you, as my son, this universe is hostile, and you have to prepare and learn how to defend yourself. Surely an interesting belief. And as much as my father, I was experiencing its creative power, consequently, for 40 years. In the timeline spread, I'm using it here, each position of each card and its numerological meaning are of profound significance. And each card also has got one key word which explains the orientation of it. Card 1 relates to the past. Card 2 to the present. Card 3 to the future. Card 4 to past helpful action. Card 5 to future helpful action. And card 6, where we have 2 cards drawn now, is the lesson all these cards contain. The key word for card 1 is destiny. The key word for part 2 is the High Priestess, which means intuition. Card 3, 6 of Pentacles, stands for success. Card 4, almost achieving one's goal, a last effort is required. Card 5 is the Queen of Swords, meaning female universal intelligence. Card 6, which is composed of 2, means through successful action and management, relying on the inner force, we will conquer whatever we want to conquer. Now, at this point of my reading, I once more would like to thank my teachers who are guiding me in all of this. One of them is a lady. She said once that she had become one with her partner in union while he was leaving his body deliberately for good, whatever all of this may mean. Namaste, and thank you for your attention.